And based on some of my research, we talked about personal characteristics. One of the fascinating things I found out in my research is that the older the entrepreneur is, the less risk that he has starting a business. And now, why do you say that, right? Because you're more seasoned. You've got more experience. You can make better decisions.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi, it's Rick Nuske, and welcome to today's episode of the My Future Business Show. Today, we're going to be looking at the important topic for startups, which is risks and the potential for failure. I have with me today Dr. Anthony Miles. How are you, Anthony?
I'm fine. How are you, Rick? I really appreciate it. I was looking forward to this interview all week.
Yeah, no, look, I had to spend a little bit of time going over all of your background, and it's so extensive and so interesting. Would you mind spending a minute or two just sharing your background and, in fact, even a little bit about your personal time when you move away from, your work environment and you enjoy yourself? What do you like doing in your pastime?
Some of my pastime I like doing is I like going and traveling, and I don't know if you saw this in my bio. I do legal expert witness work, and that's really interesting. That's an interesting part of my work. I've been asked to testify in court for false advertising claims, business scams, things of those sort. And I get to travel a little bit, and I get to keep my tools sharp in my head. And that's really, really interesting. Some of the cases I've been coming across. It's really interesting.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and I make almost as much as an attorney, part-time of my venture, and I make my per diem is almost about the same as an attorney's.
Wow, that's amazing. Often people will talk about how they like to go fishing or something, but this is what you do in your pastime to keep that sharp, pointy end, don't you?
Yes, and I'm a dad, and I have two daughters. I got a daughter in medical school, and she just made the dean's list. I'm just coming back from New Orleans, so
oh, wow.
I'm all happy.
Fantastic. Yeah. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. My daughters are my heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, with the My Future Business Show audience, Anthony, we are helping startups and existing small to medium-sized business owners understand every moving part to a business to help them be successful in their venture. This is the whole mission for My Future Business, and having you on the show today is really going to be quite useful for them. How can we start this conversation? Where should we start when we're looking at startups, risks, and the potential for failure?
Oh, that's a great question, Rick, and thank you for having me on your show. And I thought when I first connected with you, I thought that my book and my background would be a perfect fit for your show. Let me tell you something about my background a little bit, and we get into my book, why my book is important to your audience. I wrote the book, Risk Factors and Business Models, The 5 Forces of Entrepreneurial Risk. And when I came to putting my book together, Rick, what I found out that there were no books on entrepreneurship that talked about risk. And I just found that absolutely disturbing to me, because we all know about the dismal failures of business. Every book is not going to hit a home run like Facebook. And I just thought, why are there no books talking about entrepreneurial risk, the possibility that a business venture can fail? And I just thought it was odd. And the term entrepreneurship comes from the field of economics. And a guy named Richard Cantillon, I think in the 1700s, coined the term entrepreneurship. I believe he's a French economist, and that's where the word entrepreneurship comes from. In entrepreneurship, the original definition is one who assumes risk of starting a business venture. So if you look at the story behind it and the history behind it, and you're saying entrepreneurship is almost synonymous with risk, why are there no books on the marketplace to discuss it? And we've seen all these books. They give you the rose-colored glasses view of entrepreneurship. And when my book is based on my doctoral work, and I looked at 500 plus small business enterprise, and I measured risk patterns. And I just said to myself, it just bothered me. And that's how I came up with my book. And that's how I'm able to be on your show and talk about those things because my book is a wake-up call, Rick. And my book tends to, I think, give people a realistic view of entrepreneurship. For every guy that started a Facebook, there are millions that failed.
Yeah.
There are patterns there that guys probably didn't see when they were starting their business. And I'm here to share my knowledge with you about that and definitely inform and inspire your listeners.
From a corporate background, I dealt heavily in risk and risk management, the identify and manage and reduce and what level can be retained in terms of risk. You see that inside of the corporate doors, and I absolutely agree with you. Like when I was starting out, I didn't realize I was going from a 40-hour a week to an 80-hour a week and earning probably a third of what I was when I started out, but these are some of the inherent risks, aren't they?
Absolutely. And the thing about your situation, Rick, is you have the ability to multiply your revenue streams. See, that's the thing about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship gives you financial freedom and also gives you mental freedom. And based on your skill set that you have, you can multiply your revenue streams based on your skill set. Like I don't know any entrepreneurs that just do one thing. And you have to look at your business as an ecosystem. It feeds off of each other. Like you have your radio podcast, you probably have a column. You may sit on advisory boards where they pay you money for sitting and advising people. And then you have your speaking when people pay you to come and speak. Those are 3 revenue streams that I just mentioned right there. Yeah. Okay. And so when you're an entrepreneur, you have to look at yourself as, and I don't mean to use it literally, but you have to look at yourself as a one-man corporation that's an ecosystem. And your ecosystem, everything that you do builds on each revenue stream, and your revenue streams are interdependent on each other. Yeah. So just because you make a third of what you made when you're working in the corporate world means that's one revenue stream. But you would plug up all of those other revenue streams to equal or if not surpass what you're making when you were working at the corporate job. So you're still in the driver's seat. You see what I'm saying? And they don't teach us this in school, they don't teach us this.
Well, this is the thing, this is what comes rattling back time and again, is that it seems in many respects that the school system, regardless of where you are in any developed country, they just have this, I don't know, like a frontal lobotomy when it comes to teaching what's actually real in the business world. That's what I
totally agree. Totally agree with that.
It seems to me to make sense to actually make this part of their curriculum, but for some reason they don't.
Yes, and I'm a former professor, and I taught at the university in state schools and private schools, and I can tell you this is the disconnect that we have, especially with business curriculums. A lot of the people that are teaching business are professors who studied in school but never practiced their craft. Yeah. And, that's not totally a good thing. You want to have a professor that has that can bring a different dimension to you. Not only can he teach and talk about the theoretical side, he should also talk about his what he practiced in the jungle. So a lot of the students that are being taught in the universities are meeting a professor that was a TA before they got hired by the university, and they never either worked in the corporate world or they did for a limited capacity, and they studied in school. And then when you're telling students things about business, you're really disconnected from what's going on in the jungle. Yeah. And I think, and we also have to remember, Rick, that colleges and universities were set up not for you to be an entrepreneur. They were set up to prepare you for a job. That was the original intention of colleges and universities, to prepare you for the workforce. And that's why you're probably seeing this a little bit. And I think in my situation, it's a little bit different. That's why you're starting to see entrepreneurship programs pop up in some of the universities because there are no jobs out there. We've totally saturated the market with people with college degrees, and America is probably one of the most educated countries in the world because we have all these colleges and universities here. And so what you have to do, and I don't want to discourage students from getting a college degree, you have to look at school as an apprenticeship. Yeah. You have to look at school as giving you the main ingredients for understanding the basic tenets of business. What that means is every business major should know how to read a financial statement, balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement. If you know those 3, you should be able to read any financial statement and annual reports. So when you give the basic tools of business, then it's up to you to take that to the next level. Okay, and the core classes that you take, look at them as an apprenticeship to you starting your own business. And sometimes, we don't find sanctuary in the colleges and universities. Some people have to go out there in the jungle and experience it themselves. And I always say, this is why I don't judge people, Rick. Everybody's in a stage of development.
Yeah.
I may be at a longer, different stage than you are, but we're all in a stage of development. And I hate to say this, you're probably going to agree with me on this. The internet has made college degrees irrelevant.
It's funny because I went to university and I've found that all of the qualifications, exactly like you've said, were foundational stones to where I am today. However, none of those components do I actively use in the business or reflect the person that I am or the business that I own today.
I totally get it. And most of the time when these students get out of school, it happened to me, of course, you're in a field that's totally dissimilar to what you studied in school.
Mm-hmm.
You may get a degree in marketing, like in my situation, and me working in the financial services field or industry when you get out of school. And thank God you had finance in school, so you have some main ingredients of that field. But the thing about it is the internet has made college degrees less relevant.
Yeah.
And what that means is somebody can learn pretty much everything by the click of a mouse and having access to information.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean it literally, but really how valuable is a college degree when you have the internet?
Yeah.
Now, before the internet, it was more valuable because the schools held knowledge away from people, and you had to go to school to get that knowledge or get that those main ingredients of knowledge of business. But now it's such a different ball game now. So what you have to do when you're in school, you have to make sure that you know what your niche is and use school as an apprenticeship to build those skills. So when you start your own business venture, you're not starting from zero, you're starting from 10.
It seems to me that technology is advanced so quickly that it's left the quote unquote traditional learning systems in the university and schools, public and private, whatever they are, literally 10 steps behind the 8 ball.
I totally agree with you. We still got people using 16th century teaching methods, writing on the board, and these students, I saw this when I was a professor. Mm-hmm. Students get bored a lot quicker. And a professor, and what made my classes interesting when I was a professor, I used to show stuff like Shark Tank. I used to show The Apprentice in my classes because there's what you teach in a book and there's how business is actually practiced. And, it's almost like, how can a professor talk about law? He's a law professor, but he's never practiced a case. He never been to court. He never been to trial or practice defending a client or working for the plaintiff. And he's just basically a theory jockey. And I think some universities, we have a higher abundance of theory jockeys and we don't have enough practitioners in the colleges and universities. And it's a sad tragedy.
I certainly agree with the need for academic rigor and, holding an understanding of the educational academic side. But I give far more credibility when a professor is in front of me lecturing to me about a particular topic that's relevant. If he's actually had his work boots on, he's actually started from the bottom and worked his way up.
Absolutely. And with these colleges and universities hire professors, there's so many things that they don't take in consideration, and I think there's almost a paradigm shift there, Rick. What the paradigm shift is, we need a guy that's been out in the jungle. We can't have a guy that was, basically a TA before he, got his doctorate or whatever, and he's never been in the field yet. And I'm serious about this, Rick. You probably look up some professors. Some of them have never worked in the field of business, not one iota. And it's sad.
It's funny, I'll use myself as a bit of a case study here. I actually was working in the corporate world, and then after getting my experience in the field, as it were, I then went to university. So I did it reverse, about face.
Okay. That's awesome.
And
that's awesome.
And it seemed to work because I was able to sit in there with a little bit of perspective of the real world. This is what's actually happening in an international business, a national business, a local business, and it just made the learning curve so much easier. But I think a lot of people think that still they need to do it the other way around. Go get your degree first, then go into the workplace. Maybe we need to question these things.
Well, maybe we need to have kids go out in the jungle for 2 years, like the military, and then go back to school,
Yep.
and then learn what you should have learned. But I believe that you need both. I don't think one without the other is necessarily. I think you need both. I think it needs to be like somewhat of a work-life balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of the things that are written in books, you may not understand it until you go out in the jungle. Like one of my professors talked about the product life cycle of a product. And, when you're in school taking classes, I was 19 years old. I'm like, why is he telling us this? And I didn't get it until almost till later in my 40s what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the need for both of them. I think my story is your story. I did it backward.
Yep.
I put myself through college and I worked in retail for 13 years and I understood all of those things. But I guess when you're working in a certain industry and then when you go to school, the school gives you the true definition of what you were looking at, but you didn't know what it is. And I was able to relate to a lot of my professors, like shelf placement, the psychology of pricing, why you use 9 at the end of a number when you give pricing. Why is it people buy things that say $3-4 as opposed to 33 cents or 34 cents each?
Yeah.
That's psychology of pricing. I didn't understand that until my professor put that in those terms. I said, oh, that's what he's talking about. But had I not been in the jungle, I wouldn't have been able to balance that. So if I had never worked, I wouldn't have been able to balance that out, what he was saying to me. So definitely my story is your story.
Yeah, it seems to me, I'm just thinking of an example about that. I'm happy to buy something at $9.97, but once it hits $1,000, no, I'm out. I'd love to talk a little bit about your analytical and metric background, because what you're talking about here in terms of ERO, which is the entrepreneurial risk orientation. Could you share a little bit about what that is?
Sure. The ERO index is what I used when I was doing my statistical analyses of the 500 plus businesses that I measured the 5 risk patterns. I probably need to mention this too. Basically, when I did my research, I identified 5 basic risk patterns of a business. Okay, there's personal characteristics, there's enterprise operations, there's intangible operations, there's business climate or market climate rather, and there's a business environment. Okay, and all 3 of those risks affect the vitality of a business venture, and all 3 of those risks are different. So the ERO index measures those risks based on an index, and you can tell by a business how high the ERO index is. If it's lower or higher, it tells you that their business has more risk, say in one industry or whatever industry that they're in, as opposed to another industry. So that's how I came up with that entrepreneurship risk orientation.
So that's like a risk profile, right?
Correct. And basically, I met a guy. You're going to find this funny, Rick. Well, one of my studies, I had a guy, I think he was a millionaire. He owned I think 4 franchises. Okay. It was like kind of a wing franchise here in town.
Yep.
This guy had a high school diploma, and he was saying, yeah, I never went to school. I just got into my field, and I felt guilty. I felt like I need to take a shower talking to this guy. I'm working on my PhD, and this guy's a millionaire, and he's telling me, he was real humble about it. He wasn't arrogant. He just, I did go past high school.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me. And how it resonated with me, Rick, was this. If then that's not necessarily true saying that you go get a college degree and you're going to be successful. Now, is it?
No.
That's not necessarily true, is it?
No, not at all. No.
Not at all. So what that means to your listeners is sometimes it have to be passion first and then education. And sometimes it may be education first and passion.
You can list a long list of even billionaires nowadays who did not finish any formal schooling or anything. They've left early, and one that comes to mind, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard Branson is one.
Yes, he's one of them. We can. Michael Dell started Dell Computers. He was a UT Austin student. He lives here in Texas. His I think his headquarters are in Austin. He was one. I think, who was the other one? Bill Gates, everybody knows Bill Gates. He dropped out of school. Steve Jobs.
Yep, come to mind.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there are lots of them. So my point, I guess, is that, um, although it's a good foundational place to start with your education, put your boots on, go out and do some work, find out what the real world's like, and
Absolutely.
there's many different ways to find your path, I suspect.
Yes, and I said this in one of my other interviews. I said every person's going to have a moment of clarity, and what that moment of clarity is when you become dissatisfied with the workplace, and you say, "Listen, I have to do me. I have to get out here and start a business." And you have to. Sometimes people get their moment of clarity in their 20s, and some people get their moment of clarity in their 50s. And based on some of my research, we talked about personal characteristics. One of the fascinating things that I found out in my research is that the older the entrepreneur is, the less risk that he has starting a business. And now, why do you say that, right? Because you're more seasoned. Yeah. You've got more experience. You can make better decisions, and you're more mature. Yeah. If you started a business when you were 19, 20 years old, you really weren't ready for that, and it probably wouldn't have panned out for you. But as you get older, you get more seasoned, you make better decisions, and you also, forgot to mention this, you have more social networks. Yeah. So, case in point, if me and you were in our 50s and we both got tired of the rat race, and I said, listen, I was a statistician where I was in my company. I could be a contract statistician for 15, 20 different companies. And I basically created a business for myself, and you could be the marketing guy, and we definitely coexist together. I collect the data, you sell it. We just built a new business. Yeah. And we built a competitive-based business because nobody can do what you do, and nobody can do what I do. Yeah. So when you work at your job, you have to look at your skill set and take an assessment of what your skill set is, and then marketize your knowledge. Every skill set that you gain on the job can be turned into a business venture if you look and if you do it right.
I think there's a lot to be said for mindset. What do you think about telling startup entrepreneurs about their mindset? How should they be thinking when they go into their venture?
What I would tell a new entrepreneur, and you probably were reading my bio, those are probably 90% of my clients. What I tell people is drop the employee mindset. Yeah. Okay? And the first step in dropping employee mindset, and like I talked about earlier, Rick, is to always think about multiple revenue streams. Now, when you're an entrepreneur, you're leaving your job, you don't have a security blanket of a job anymore. So you have to be more aggressive. You have to pick and choose. And one of the key skills that entrepreneurs need to develop, especially new entrepreneurs, is have that third eye. And what that third eye is, being able to see opportunities before everybody else does. And there's I have a book I'm writing, and I'll definitely come back on the show and discuss it with you. One of the books that I'm writing is How to Spot Opportunities. And there's something called opportunity theory. And what opportunity theory is this. If you see an opportunity that no one else sees, it's a true opportunity. But if you see the same opportunity that everybody else sees, you're not going to be successful, and you're not going to beat the odds. If I decide to, and you probably agree with me on this, everybody and their brothers getting into the marijuana business, aren't they?
It seems to be the case.
Yeah. Well, we all see the same opportunity, right? So what's the likelihood of me being successful if everybody else is fishing in the same pond I'm going to fish in?
Oh, it's saturated.
It's saturated, exactly. Market saturation. So what I have to do is I said, well, there's got to be another pond to fish in. And if you're an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs tend to be contrarians. You have to be a contrarian. If everybody's going left, you should go right to see if there's an opportunity to be on the right than there is to be on the left. And remember, I developed this over time. I didn't just get a coconut hit me in the head and found all this. This is through, my experience outside of the academic world. Yeah, yeah. You always want to have your third eye open to see opportunities, because when you have your third eye open and you see someone or you see opportunities before everybody else does, that's the true entrepreneur, and you need to develop that. And one of the things is being able to see something. You know how you ever heard of that movie, I See Dead People?
Yep.
Well, entrepreneurs say, I see money people. So that's how you gotta think.
That's golden. That's a bit of gold right there for everyone who's listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once we've taken the beginner entrepreneur past this mindset, and they're starting to identify a few things that really interest them. They've niched down that fraction. How important is it for them to start setting up systems inside their business, like marketing systems and things like that?
Absolutely. And you're probably like me, Rick. I believe in you can't do everything. So when you want to start a system or whatever, like case in point, you have to have your Holy Trinity. And I don't mean the Catholic Holy Trinity. I mean ABC, your attorney, your banker, and your CPA.
Yep.
The CPA keeps you complying with the government. Your banker is the money guy, and your attorney protects your business.
Yep.
And a lot of times when you have your systems in place, and systems are not that, simple. This gets a bit more complex than that. You have to outsource your gap in your circle of competence. And what that means is, as an entrepreneur, you have to manage resources. And if you're not good at marketing, you go hire a marketing person. If you're not good at accounting, you hire an accounting person.
Yep.
You can't do everything good. If you try to do everything, something's gonna, get neglected, and then you're gonna get yourself in trouble. In all businesses, you gotta look at yourself as, okay, that's why you have employees, to do the little things that you want to focus on to focus on little things while you're focusing on the big things. So your systems you have to look at your systems as like this. I'm not good at this. Who could I bring in to plug in this hole to get this going while I focus on what my strengths are, my core strengths are in? Mm-hmm. And that's the way you have to look at that. And every person has a circle of competence, but you don't have a circle of competence in everything. I'm not good in finance. So what I need to do, I need to bring in a finance guy to help me find money, help me put me in front of venture capitalists or investors, and he would know what to tell them. And I was in a situation, Rick, you'll find this funny. Here's a quick story. I was involved in a venture, and we were trying to get funding for a project. The bank was very interested. We knew someone at the bank, a major bank here in town, and they wanted to see a presentation of the business plan. And this was done before I actually got involved with the venture. I was coming in on the back end. Well, I heard they crashed and burned presenting the business plan. And what was the reason for that? You had a guy that was an accountant trying to present the business plan, and accountants tend to be cynical. Mm-hmm. Okay? So they didn't bite on it. They said, you need to go back and work on the business plan because I don't see value in this venture that you're trying to do. So what do we learn from this? You bring in a team of people to do a business plan. You bring in a marketing guy. You bring in a management guy. You bring in the CPA to handle the financing. You bring in the other people. You bring in a guy that does the strategic planning. And you put all that together. Now you have a package to present to a banker who may be interested in investing in your venture. And you're not going over there looking like ridiculous because you had a CPA presenting a business plan.
It's I think back to a couple of people I've spoken to, in fact many people I've spoken to about their early phase of their ventures, and they had this perfectionistic I want to be involved with absolutely every single process in the business. They need to let go. How do you communicate that constructively to somebody who's like that?
Oh, I think we know this guy, especially when we're in the workforce, Rick. We know this guy. This guy's the control freak micromanager.
Yep.
And this is the problem with this guy. Everybody's met this guy in their career. Mm-hmm. You monitoring if a guy is 5 minutes late to work, but you don't look at the overall picture. See, and I talked about this in some of my management classes. See, when you move up the corporate pyramid, see, when you start at the bottom, your skills are more technical. But when you move up, your skills tend to be more conceptual. And what that means is, Rick, is you tend to look at the business as an overall entity rather than a specific part of the business, which is where the technical part comes in. So you still got guys who can't let that technical stuff go. They're trying to micromanage at a much higher level, say like an area manager, and they crash and burn because they didn't acquire any new skill set as they moved up. They still tried to run businesses like they ran it when they were on the technical side, and it doesn't work.
No.
Think of it as a football coach, as a head football coach. You started off as a defensive coordinator, right?
Yep.
And when you move to head coach, you have to bring in your own defensive coordinator. So you can't be overhung up on the defense. So you have to bring in a guy to fill in that hole. And so the head coach has to look at everything.
Yeah.
He can't just look at the defense. He's got to look at the offense and the special teams. And so what you tell a guy like that is you need to move from technical skills to conceptual. Meaning you need to look at the overall business, how everything fits together, how the ecosystem of the business works. Mm-hmm. Some guys, Rick, can't let that go. It's a control thing. Mm. And that's the ones that crash and burn.
They seem to maybe lack the ability to trust others to help them grow their business, maybe.
I totally see that. You shouldn't be in business. You should be a guy working on somebody's car in the back room, working on brake pads or whatever, because you can't run a business like that. You're going to have to trust some people. Yep. Now, I'm not saying give people the keys to the fortress, but some of the things you have to strategically outsource things that you can't do or that you don't have the time. There's only 24 hours in a day. So you have to manage your time wisely. And the guys who know how to manage their time are the most successful people, not only inside of entrepreneurship, but in anything that they work in, corporate or non-corporate. The ability to manage resources is what's key. You know, time is a valuable resource. You ever heard that saying, would I rather borrow $100 from you, Rick, or would I rather borrow $20 from five guys? Okay? Yep. I get $20 from five guys quicker than I can get $100 from you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. This is one of these fields that clearly I have a vested interest in, and I know that the My Future Business audience is just lapping up this call. And for everybody who is on the call, definitely if you are looking for some assistance in any of these areas, make contact with Anthony as soon as you possibly can. Now, Anthony, where can people find you so that they can get some help?
Sure. My website is www.mdicorpventures.com, and I have my email on my website. I'm always updating my website, and I also, that's the best way to get a hold of me. My email is on my website. If you need the email, it's dmiles@mdicorpventures.com. And my passion, I have a really interesting business.
Yeah.
I do business for high-end clients, and I deal with lottery winners, and I deal with professional athletes or higher-end clientele. And some of the same problems that I see with them is what I see with our clients. I want to be in business. I don't know what it is. I've seen guys invest in business scams and end up losing all their money or a majority of their money. And so I act as a business advisor, and I try to protect my clients from, all kind of crap like that. And I've seen it all, Rick. And they still have some that I haven't seen before.
That's what keeps you keen, doesn't it? Keeps you interested.
Absolutely. How would you like to invest in a business where you can put a pill in your gas tank and give you 200 miles to a gallon? Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that my clients get approached with.
Oh, wow.
Or your brother-in-law is trying to start a franchise, and an ice cream franchise, calling it Creamers, and I'm like, what? No.
Wait on.
No.
Anthony, this call has been an absolute blast. We could literally go on for hours.
We got to come back and do this again.
Absolutely. The My Future Business audience is, this is a building community, and part of my role here is to make these connections and keep them living, breathing, and relevant to our audience. I definitely would love to have you back on the show. Would that be of interest to you?
Oh, absolutely. We can do it on a regular basis. We can do it for once or twice a quarter, once or twice a year, and let you know what I'm working on. I'm definitely going to get you a copy of my new book coming out called How to Get Away with Murder Marketing. I'm almost done with it, and I will personally send you an autographed copy of that, Rick.
Look, that's amazing. I'm humbled by that. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for being on today's My Future Business Show.
Thank you so much, Rick. I enjoyed it. I had a blast.
It's been fun having you on the call with us today. Now click on that big red subscribe button and make sure you leave us a comment, share us with your friends, and join the growing list of leading entrepreneurs who have enjoyed their time on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews.